here we have a president who can log into his Twitter account and see notifications of American citizens and people all across the entire world talking to him directly. I mean, think about how far that this has come in just a decade here. I mean, we're probably the closest thing with President Trump and his Twitter account to a direct democracy than back in the, Grecian days. I mean, this is just really a huge fundamental change in how communications is going at the presidential level. Right. Now, the other side of me is the side that, is maybe concerned about policy and about foreign affairs. I spent time working for Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, and, very sensitive issues of foreign policy, let's say. And, I was working on the Prime Minister's Twitter account. I was scared before I ever pressed tweet there, and, oftentimes there was, many people who were approving things there before that went out, and the Prime Minister would be tweeting, and then the campaign would be tweeting. So, some of these issues are very nuanced. Some of them, there's experts for reasons, and there's decades and decades or centuries of history and of alliances, and that can all be wiped away potentially in 140 characters in the press of a single button. So in that sense, it could be scary.
That's a really interesting point. You talked about this being sort of close to direct democracy. But, social media is just another tool of communication, and every president tries to use the latest and greatest to kind of get their message out there. So is Trump just kind of going to the full intent of this new medium and using it the way that it is best used? Or is he going out on a limb and maybe going a little too far, as some of his critics, I think, would say?
President Trump is agenda setting with every tweet that he puts out. Every tweet and every thought that he's putting out on the internet is essentially determining what the news cycle looks like.
Right. We've already seen some of that pressure being exerted when it comes to job creation, and he's been going after individual businesses as a conservative and a Republican. I mean, how do you feel about whether that has been successful, and is that something that can ultimately be in the interest of the American people? There's a bit of it that is kind of utilitarian at this point. He's trying to accomplish something when it comes to pressuring companies to stay here in the United States.
When President Trump uses Twitter like he did with Carrier in Indiana, like he's doing with Bayer and some of these other companies, I think that he's using Twitter in a very positive way to promote his agenda and save American jobs. And I think that whereas before, a lot of times there was, a lot of discussions between staffs of presidents and these companies, and there were boards and there were studies and things took months. Well, now President Trump is saying, to hell with all of that. Let's tweet it out and see if we can accelerate and speed up this entire process. Carrier, either stay in America or you don't, but I might shame you publicly on Twitter. Boeing, if you're spending too much money on Air Force One, I'm going to shame you and put pressure on you on my Twitter account if you decide to charge the American people all of this money.
Do you foresee President Trump maybe relinquishing some of the control over the tweets that he puts out so that other people on his team can do some of the work for him? Or do you see him just continuing on as he has been, just, dictating his tweets and doing it his own way?
I think that the authenticity of President Trump is this sort of, if I think it, I'm going to tweet it. If it's something that I feel the American people need to know, I'm not going to wait for a press release or to run it through my communications director or to even run it through my specialized staff and secretaries of whatever department. I'm just going to put it out for the world to see. And I think, more often than not, that is positive for democracy and for America and for transparency and for helping push through President Trump's agenda. I do think that it's going to be very interesting to get into some of these foreign policy issues where a tweet could have very serious impacts abroad, where whether on, trade, whether on war, whether on, militarization. There is a lot of potential effects based on what President Trump tweets.